Have you ever woken up one morning and felt like you were no longer yourself? Not because you forgot your name, not because someone hurt you, but because deep inside, something had left or was slowly melting away. You look in the mirror. The eyes are still yours, but the gaze has changed, quieter, deeper, as if you had just returned from somewhere far away, a place you cannot name. This is not depression. It is not a midlife crisis, and it is certainly not that you are losing control. This is the first step of a journey that many never dare to begin, and those who come out of it are never the same again. They call it spiritual awakening. Today, I want to tell you a story, not about religion, not about belief systems, but about a quiet transformation happening inside your body, inside your heart, and deep within your soul. A woman once wrote to me that after a sleepless night, she felt as if an old layer of skin had just peeled off her body. She began to hear sounds others didn't notice. She could feel the sadness in others, even when they were smiling. And her eyes became so bright that her husband said, "You're seeing right through me, aren't you? You see, awakening isn't always as gentle as poetic words make it seem. It's a shedding, sometimes filled with tears, sometimes utterly silent, but always real and irreversible. If your body is changing, if your mind no longer fits your old life, if your gaze has grown distant and even you don't know why, then maybe you're not lost. You're just waking up. Stay with me. In the next 20 minutes, I'll take you through every sign, every shift, every phase of a process no one ever taught you how to enter. And maybe, by the end of the journey, you'll look back at everything that once scared you and smile. So it turns out, I never lost myself. I was just finding my way back home. They say that spiritual awakening is a state of perfect peace, that once you open the door of light within, everything becomes clear and effortless. You'll meditate every morning, see auras, hear the universe whispering, no more worries, no more pain, only light and love. I believed that. Maybe you once believed it too. But then it happened. Not a glorious moment, not a blinding flash of light, but a crack, so small, so quiet. One day, you wake up and realize the things that once made you feel okay now feel foreign. You look at your loved ones and wonder why you feel out of sync. The job you once pursued suddenly feels empty. The familiar conversations start to feel dull. There is no ringing bell announcing your awakening, only a sense of unease, a vague feeling, and a sadness without a shape. You start to ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel so lost? Why am I no longer myself? But that is the beginning of the deepest transformation you will ever go through. Spiritual awakening is not a journey toward peace. It is a journey that reveals everything you once buried. It doesn't take you straight to the light. It takes you to the basement, where you have to shine a light on every old wound, every unhealed pain, every part of yourself you once denied. It makes you cry for no reason, snaps at the ones you love, makes you crave solitude, even in a crowd, and it teaches you one simple truth. Truth is not always comfortable, but it is always freeing. I once heard a woman share this. She was a mother of 3. She didn't have postpartum depression. Nothing was wrong in her marriage. But one morning, while making coffee, she looked out the window and felt like she was no longer there. Not her body, but her soul. It was as if it had stepped one pace away, watching her live her life as someone else. She didn't tell anyone, afraid they would call her crazy. But then she began to read, to write in journals, to sit quietly in the empty spaces. And slowly, she realized one thing. She wasn't crazy. She was waking up. You see, awakening is not about reaching an ideal state. It is about dismantling everything that is no longer you. It is a temporary collapse to rebuild something truer. And the first stage of that process is always confusion, the unfamiliarity with yourself, the urge to run, but with nowhere left to go. If you're feeling that right now, if you find yourself conflicted, lost, and out of place in the life you used to know this: you are not alone, and you are not wrong. You are simply standing at the threshold of a journey no one else can walk for you. But if you find the courage to enter, you won't just rediscover yourself. You will uncover a version of you that is deeper, more real, and freer than anything you ever imagined. No one tells you that. When the soul begins to awaken, the body will respond too, not in the way you expect, but with symptoms, strange, unnamed, and sometimes frightening. I used to think awakening was a purely spiritual phenomenon, something that happened on the inside, with the mind, with the emotions, with consciousness. But then, when I entered it myself, I began to notice my body was changing, and no one could explain it. My sleep was disrupted. I would wake up at the same hour every night, 3 a.m., heart racing, mind wide awake as if it were daylight, but with no specific thoughts to hold on to. There were days I was exhausted, though I had done nothing. There were nights I trembled without a fever, and for a while, my weight fluctuated wildly despite eating, sleeping, and moving as usual. I went to the doctor. Tests, thyroid check, blood work, hormones. Everything was normal. Maybe it's stress, they said, and I nodded. But inside, I knew something deeper was happening. An old layer of energy was breaking apart. A part of me was being cleansed by my body. You see, when we begin to heal at the energetic level, the body is the first to respond because it holds everything: the tension you swallowed, the tears you didn't dare to shed, the hug you longed for but never received, the anger you shoved into your gut for years. The body doesn't forget. It only waits until you're ready to release. I once spoke with a man who awakened after a painful divorce. He told me that for the first 3 months, he experienced constant chest pain, not the heart, not the lungs, but right in the center of the chest, as if a door was trying to open. He never told anyone, but later, when he read about the heart chakra, he realized his body was loosening an old suit of armor. You might feel shoulder tension because you're beginning to release emotional burdens. You might feel dizzy because your energy frequencies are shifting. You might feel like you have the flu, but you're not sick. It's a purge from the inside out. But the danger is we often ignore these symptoms or fear them or judge ourselves, thinking, I'm weak. No, you are not weak. You are simply being recalibrated. Imagine this. You are a house that has survived many storms. Now, the inner walls are being torn down to be rebuilt. There will be dust, there will be noise, there will be trembling, but in the end, that house will be stronger, warmer, and truly a place to return to. So, if you're feeling tired for no reason, if your body is sending strange signals, don't resist too quickly. Listen, let your body be what it is, honest, alive, and wiser than any advice. Because sometimes your soul doesn't speak in words. It speaks through a racing heart, through shallow breaths, through restless sleep, just to remind you, I am waking up and I need you to listen. Not everyone notices, but one of the first signs of awakening appears in the most visible place, the eyes, not because you cry more, not because sleepless nights leave dark circles, but because that gaze has changed. I once met a woman in a group therapy session. She didn't talk much. She didn't share stories. She just sat there quietly, with eyes wide open, as if she were seeing through everything. And when she turned to me, that gaze made me freeze. There was no anger, no resentment, only one thing: utterly real, incredibly clear, and profoundly deep. After the session, she said only one sentence: "I think I've remembered who I am." There's something fascinating about it. When your soul begins to return, the eyes are the first to reflect it. Others will look at you and say, "There's something different about you. You look changed." But they won't know how to describe what's different, because you're still you. It's just that the gaze is no longer the same. The eyes begin to look clearer, as if washed clean by uncried tears, as if the dust of the past had just been gently swept away. You no longer look at things to judge, but to feel, no longer try to understand with logic, but begin to see with intuition. That gaze no longer tries to defend, but starts to open, no longer reflects fear, but begins to reflect truth. And the strange thing is, others will sense it. A man once told me that his wife changed after a meditation retreat. She wasn't more talkative. She didn't act out. But every time she looked at him, he felt seen through, not in a critical way, but with a gaze that made it impossible to lie to himself anymore. You see, the eyes aren't just the windows to the soul. They are the mirror of transformation. When you start clearing old energies, when suppressed emotions are released, when the ego no longer controls every reaction, your gaze softens, but deepens. You'll look at a child and see yourself in them. You'll look at a tree and feel life breathing. You'll look at someone in pain and, without asking anything, you'll know. Not because you've become divine, but because you are truly present. Life no longer happens out there. It begins to happen through your gaze, right here. So, if lately you've noticed a change in your eyes, if you no longer look away when facing the mirror, if you feel that you're seeing rather than just looking through, know this: it's not an illusion. It's a sign that you are becoming present, that your soul is now shining through those windows, no longer hidden behind the dust of time. And if someone has ever looked at you for a long moment, smiled softly, and said, "There's something strange in your eyes," smile back. No explanation needed. Because deep down, you know, I have seen myself. There is no lightning bolt to announce it, no clear warning. Just one day, you wake up and realize everything you once believed to be you is no longer true. You no longer want what you once desired. You no longer feel joy in the things that used to excite you. You no longer feel aligned with the very life you've spent years building. You're not losing your mind. You're not lost. You're experiencing one of the most profound shifts in the awakening journey. The dissolution of the ego death. The ego is not the enemy. It's the framework that helped you survive. The first layer you wore to step into this world with a name, a role, a set of expectations. But at some point, when the soul begins to awaken, you can no longer bear that tight shell. I once met a successful man, a businessman, father of 3. He had everything: house, car, respect. Then one day, sitting in his car after a big meeting, he broke down in tears, not because he failed, but because he no longer knew who he was without the business card in his hand. That's what ego death feels like. It's not loud. It doesn't look like death, but it leaves you empty. You don't know who you are. You don't know what you should do. You no longer want to keep pretending, but you're afraid that if you let go, you'll disappear. And the scariest part, you can't explain it to anyone. People will say, "You're just burned out," or "Take a break. You'll feel better." But deep down, you know, nothing is going back to the way it was. Ego death doesn't kill you. It only strips away what you no longer are. It removes the self built on proving worth. It removes the version of you shaped by others' expectations. It takes away old definitions like, "I am strong. I must succeed. I must not fail. I am always in control." And then you fall into the void, That void can last for weeks, months. It makes you think you're lost. But in truth, it's the space where you stop living as a role and start listening to what's real inside. The soul is never in a rush. It waits patiently until you're brave enough to ask, if I am no longer who I was, then who am I? That's where a new journey begins, not to rebuild an image, but to shed every layer that no longer fits. You start saying no to what you once tolerated. You begin to accept imperfection. You see your own fragility and feel no shame. You see the sorrow in others and recognize it as something you once carried. That's the place where the old self dissolves and the true soul begins to emerge into the light. So if you feel like you've lost all direction, if you no longer want to chase anything, if it feels like life is slipping from your hands, don't be afraid. You are not losing yourself. You are simply shedding a version of you that you no longer need. Like a snake shedding its skin, it's not death. It's the sign of life. Breathe. Let the ego melt. Don't rush to replace it with something new. Just allow yourself to sit in the truth. I am becoming who I truly am, and I don't need to know who that is just yet. When the old self dissolves, a new space opens within you. That space is very still, very vast, and incredibly tender. You may find yourself feeling exhausted in crowded places, or, without knowing why, every time someone carries sadness, you feel as if you're the one bearing it. You hear a passing remark, and it echoes inside you, like someone touched a wound not yet healed. You see someone sitting quietly on a street corner, and suddenly, your eyes begin to sting. No, you're not becoming weak. You're becoming more sensitive to energy. When awakening begins, the energy inside you starts to shift. Old defenses soften. Emotional armor begins to fall away. And you begin to feel more. You're no longer living only from the mind. You begin to sense the world before you can even understand it. Some call this the curse of the empath. I don't see it that way. I call it a gift we haven't yet learned how to use. Imagine you're a radio that's just been turned on. Signals flood in from every direction. Other people's moods, the atmosphere of a room, a sentence left unfinished. But somehow, you already understand. It all comes rushing in. And if you haven't learned how to filter the channels, you'll drown in the noise. I once met a woman who, after a deep healing journey, suddenly couldn't step foot in a shopping mall. She told me, just walking in, I felt like hundreds of emotions hit me all at once. Anxiety, anger, insecurity, loneliness, and no one said a word. Only she could hear it. And I told her this, you're not crazy. You've just activated your antenna for feeling. What you need to learn now is not how to shut it off, but how to choose which frequency to keep. Sensitivity is not a weakness. It's a deeper form of the soul's communication. But like any ability, if you don't know how to use it, it can turn against you and drain you. That's why, on the journey of awakening, setting energetic boundaries is essential. You don't have to save everyone. You don't have to empathize so deeply that you dissolve into their pain. You can listen without carrying. You can love without losing yourself. You can see clearly without being overwhelmed. And this is where energetic discernment begins. Ask yourself, is this emotion mine or someone else's? Am I reacting or reflecting? Does this belong to me? If not, can I release it? Give yourself permission to take a step back. Breathe deeply, touch your own heart, and remember, to feel does not mean to suffer. With time, this sensitivity will become your guidance system. You'll begin to sense who is trustworthy, where is safe, what decision is aligned, without needing long explanations. Because when your soul speaks, it doesn't need to shout. It only needs your stillness to be heard. So if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, If everything feels like waves crashing over you, know this. It's a sign that you're opening. What you need isn't to close again, but to learn how to walk gently. In this vibrating world, you're not too sensitive. You're becoming more real. There comes a point in your spiritual awakening where the changes aren't just emotional or mental or even physical in a conventional way. Something deeper starts to shift. Something vibrational. It's subtle, but undeniable. You feel it in how your breath moves through your chest, in how your skin tingles when you're around certain people, in how you walk into a room and sense something's off, or aligned, or heavy, or light. You're not imagining it. You're beginning to tune in. Most of us go through life never knowing that we're walking energy fields, that every cell is not just matter, but vibration, that beneath the skin and the bones and the blood. Our bodies are listening and responding to our thoughts, to our past, to the world around us, and to frequencies most people never notice. You might have heard of chakras before. For some, it sounds mystical, abstract, but in truth, chakras are just energy centers, points in your body that regulate flow, communication, connection, power, truth, intuition, love. When one gets blocked, you feel it, not always as pain. Sometimes it's a pattern, a stuck emotion, a recurring breakdown in relationships, a tension in your throat every time you try to speak your truth, a tightness in your chest when love tries to come in. But here's what no one told you. Your body knows how to heal itself, not just from illness, but from trauma, from suppression, from old programming. And it does that by shifting your frequency. The moment you begin to awaken, your system, energetically and physically, goes into a kind of reboot, like a phone that's been frozen for years, finally being turned off, reset, and brought back online. You might feel disoriented. You might feel exhausted, then suddenly energized. You might get surges of creativity or waves of sadness that make no sense. That's not regression. That's your frequency adjusting. That's your chakras realigning. That's your nervous system learning how to breathe differently. I spoke with a man, once a retired Marine, stoic, grounded, never believed in energy talk. And yet, after a life-altering experience, he told me something strange started happening. He would stand in silence and feel his hands buzzing, his stomach pulsing. He said, "It was like I could feel the entire front of my body opening, but nothing was touching me." What he didn't know was his heart chakra was unlocking, not because someone taught him how, but because his soul was ready and his body knew it before his mind did. You see, awakening is not just about becoming spiritually aware. It's about becoming energetically honest. Your body, that's where the truth lives, not your stories, not your roles, not your self-concepts, but the pulse underneath all of it. And as your energy shifts, you begin to notice things that once felt normal suddenly feel heavy, wrong, toxic, or completely misaligned. And that's not a reason to panic. It's a reason to trust your system more. If your gut starts resisting something, listen. If your chest closes in around someone, pay attention. If your skin feels electric when you speak a certain truth, that's your soul saying, yes, this, more of this. So when you feel like you're falling apart, when nothing works the way it used to, when you're sensitive to sounds, smells, lights, people, stop asking what's wrong with you. Start asking, what am I finally tuning into? Because this is the body remembering its wisdom. This is the intelligence you were born with, rebooting itself, realigning you, not with what the world taught you to be, but with who you truly are. At first, everything feels like it's falling apart, but then something strange happens. Things begin to move fast, opportunities show up, synchronicities, answers to questions you hadn't even spoken yet, moments of deep knowing that hit you mid-sentence, like truth, finally found a crack to pour through. This is the acceleration phase. It's the moment your energy, your frequency, starts moving faster than your old life can keep up with. But let me be clear, it's not all magic and instant miracles. It's not ask, and you shall receive on steroids. No, it's more like the freight train has turned into a bullet train, and you're still figuring out how to drive it. When your vibration rises, everything around you begins to respond, not just the light things, but the heavy things too, the fears, the patterns, the unprocessed grief that's been buried for years. It's not punishment. It's physics. Faster energy clears slower energy, and the clearing can feel like chaos. I remember someone once told me, ever since I started meditating and working on myself, my life got worse before it got better. I smiled gently. Not worse, I said, just realer and faster. You see, awakening strips away the delay. It removes the buffer. In the past, you could avoid, suppress, postponing. Now, every thought echoes, every emotion ripples, every intention manifests. So if you're still carrying old anger, old shame, old stories, they won't hide for long. They rise suddenly, forcefully, because your new energy no longer makes space for lies. This phase is uncomfortable and necessary. It's where many people want to quit or slow down or go back to how things were. But here's the truth. There is no going back. The version of you who used to tolerate mediocrity is gone. The one who could sleepwalk through life has woken up, and the speed at which things now unfold, it's not here to break you. It's here to show you how powerful you've become. Yes, you'll manifest faster, but also you'll be challenged faster. Your triggers will come up with no warning. Your wounds will surface mid-conversation. Your heart will ache without knowing why, and your peace will depend on your ability to stay centered when everything inside you wants to run. So how do you move through this? You slow your breath, you ground your body, you talk less and feel more, you resist the urge to react and learn instead to respond. This is where you become the observer, the one who can sit in discomfort and not abandon themselves, the one who can say, I don't know what this is, but I'm staying with it anyway. That's power, that's mastery, that's evolution. Acceleration is not chaos. It's compression. It's time collapsing. It's lessons you were meant to learn over 10 years, rising in 10 days. It's all coming now, not to destroy you, but to invite you into a version of life you've always been meant to live. So, if everything is speeding up, if it feels like you're being pulled forward and torn apart at the same time, breathe. You're not broken. You're just not who you were anymore. And the world around you is finally catching up. At some point, after the body shifts, after the ego dissolves, after the emotions rise and crash like waves, something settles, not in the world, but inside you. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause or grand revelations. It arrives quietly, like sunlight breaking through the mist, a calm that says, I see now. Spiritual clarity. That's what this is. The moment when the noise of the world no longer drowns out the voice within. You don't become perfect. You don't float above the ground. You still wash dishes, pay bills, return texts. But how you see changes. You begin to sense the truth behind words, the energy behind a smile, the fear behind someone's anger, the pain hidden in a performance, and most of all, you begin to see your own life with new eyes. You see where you were chasing what was never meant for you. You see where you abandoned yourself to keep the peace. You see the contracts you signed, not with ink, but with silence, guilt, and compromise, and you begin to tear them up. It doesn't make you cold. It makes you real. You no longer need to pretend. You stop apologizing for who you've become. You stop shrinking so others can stay comfortable. Because once you've seen truth, once you've felt alignment, you can't unfeel it. You walk through the world lighter, not because it's easier, but because you're no longer carrying what isn't yours. This clarity changes everything. You start to hear your intuition louder than your insecurities. You make decisions faster, not out of fear, but from a deep, anchored knowing. You don't just believe in alignment anymore. You feel when you're in it, and you feel when you're not. And here's the beautiful part. You no longer panic when things fall apart, because you know now clarity often comes after collapse. You've lived the falling, you've felt the burning, you've stood in the ashes, and you've seen what rises. So when someone asks you, why do you seem different? You don't explain, you just smile. Because how do you explain that you've stopped living from the outside in and started living from the inside out? How do you explain that what used to break you now builds you? This is what spiritual clarity gives you. Not more control, but more surrender. Not more certainty, but deeper trust. Trust in the body's wisdom, in the timing of your path, in the quiet voice that never needed to shout. And so, if you're here now, at this point in the journey, know this: you're not just waking up, you're remembering who you were before the world told you who to be, who you were before the masks, before the noise, before the forgetting. This isn't the end. It's the return to essence, to presence, to self. You are not becoming someone new. You are coming home. So here you are, still breathing, still standing, still holding pieces of a self that's no longer who you were, but not yet fully who you're becoming. And maybe that's the most sacred space of all, the in-between, the pause between letting go and becoming. You've walked through confusion, through fatigue, through tears that had no clear reason. You've looked in the mirror and seen eyes that felt foreign and somehow more alive than ever. You've lost parts of yourself. You've gained something quieter, something truer, and the world, it might not notice. It may keep spinning, asking you to keep up, to stay the same, to forget what you've remembered, but you won't, because now you can't. You see differently now. You feel more deeply. You're not trying to escape the storm. You've become the stillness inside it. So if no one has told you lately, you're not behind, you're not broken, you're not lost, you're awakening. And that's one of the most courageous things a human soul can do. If this journey spoke to something inside you, a memory, a truth, a heartbeat you didn't know was still alive, then I invite you to share this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe, not just to this channel, but to yourself, to your own unfolding, because no one else can walk your path. But maybe, just maybe, you don't have to walk it alone. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the quiet spaces between